So today we're going to do the handover video on this Burstner Solano. We're going to start on the outside and then we're going to move on to the inside. So firstly, coming over to the passenger side, as indicated by the sticker, you've got your diesel fill-up point, which is just into here. Opening up the passenger side, you'll also notice that you've got your tyre pressures on the door sill here, and also your bonnet release catch, which is just located here. I'll pull that now to release the bonnet. Now underneath the bonnet, the main things that you need to know is if you're ever going to jump start the vehicle. To jump start the vehicle, you've got your negative terminal, which just connects onto here, as indicated by the sticker. And then your positive terminal is just located underneath this cap, as indicated by the plus sign. Flick that up, and you can connect onto here to jump start. They're the main things that you need to know, but just to point out a couple more things. You've got your engine oil here, along with your dipstick, which is just below that. Your engine coolant is next. Up at the top, you've got your brake disc fluid, along with your power steering fluid, and then right in the corner, you've got your washer fluid for the front windscreen. Moving to the side of the motorhome, you can see this vehicle is fitted with a Fiamma awning. Now I will send you a separate video showing you how the awning operates. One thing to bear in mind is if it is a windy day, don't use the awning. Take it back in. You don't want any gust of wind getting underneath here, as you could potentially tear the awning from the vehicle, damaging the van and also others on the campsite. So if it is a windy day, take the awning back in. Now you'll notice you've got your habitation door, which is here. We'll move on to the inside shortly. And next up are your fridge vents. This is where the fridge pulls all of its air from to cool the fridge and the contents in it. Now if it is a hot day, what I'd recommend is keeping this area under shade by perhaps pulling out the awning or turning it away from the sun, and it will just allow the fridge to run a little bit more efficiently. You can also buy winter covers for these for when you are storing the motorhome. Next up, you've then got your cassette toilets. In here, to remove this, all you need to do is pull up on the yellow tab and slide out towards you. Now before removing this, please ensure that the blade on the toilet is closed. The blade that I mentioned here is actually located on the inside, and I will show you how you close and open that. But please ensure that when removing this, that blade is closed. If it is open, when you go to remove this, this will get jammed, and what has happened previously is people have pulled that and ultimately forced it and broken it. So always ensure that that blade is closed. Once you've checked that, you can then slide it out like so. And to empty this, all you've got to do is slide out this funnel, remove the yellow cap on the front, and click the yellow button right at the back here, and that will release an internal vacuum. That will allow you to empty all the contents out, and once you've done that, using some fresh water, pop that into here, you can swill out the entire cassette. If you're using toilet fluid, that can go into the top of the cap here, and there's a little measurement on there which will indicate how much you need to put in. If you are using toilet sachets, they can go straight down the toilet on the inside of the motorhome. Once you've emptied everything and you've cleaned it out and the blue fluid is in, stick the cap back on, slide the funnel back into position, and then all you've got to do is offer this back up into position until it clicks in. One final thing before I do pop it in, you will notice that you have got a little valve here which actually turns. This is what makes contact with the blade, which allows you to open and close the toilet when in use. This should always stay in this position. There should be no need for you to turn that. Always keep it in this position, because if this is off slightly, it won't go in. Like I mentioned, lift it back up, send it back in, and allow that yellow clip just to connect into position so it's nice and steady for when you're travelling. Moving away from the toilet cassette, you've got your garage, which is on this side of the motorhome. And with the garage door open, you can see you've got some of your carpets in here, along with some of the cushions if you ever wanted to make the front bed up. In the back, you will also notice I've just opened this locker, and this gains you access to your boiler. And this brings us on to the first drain down point in the motorhome. Now you've got three main drain down points in the vehicle. You've got one for the boiler, one for the fresh water tank, and one for the wastewater. Now when the vehicle is not in use, please always ensure that the vehicle is completely drained down and free of water, because if you was to leave water in, if it was winter, it could potentially freeze and crack the tanks on board. So always ensure that that everything is drained down completely. Now to drain down the boiler, it's dead simple. When you're on site, there'll be a big grid that you can drive over. Once you've driven over that and lined yourself up, you can see you've got two little valves here. Them two little switches will drain down the boiler. One for the hot water and one for the cold. Now in the up position as they are now, they are open rather, so that will drain directly out of the vehicle. Now of course, when the vehicle's in use and you want the boiler to hold water, you'll need to seal these. To seal these, all you've got to do is flip them down, which I'll do for you now. And just like that, you can see they are now flipped down, the boiler is sealed and good to be used. But when travelling or when you're not using the van, leave that open so all that water can drain out, and it means that when you're storing the van in colder climates, that won't freeze. Moving back to the outside and going around to the other side of the vehicle, you'll notice you've got another access point into your garage locker here. And also up here to the right, you've got your 230 volt hookup point here for when you're on site and you want to get 230 volt mains into the vehicle. Next to the garage locker door, you'll notice a vent. This is your Truma vent, which is in essence the vehicle's chimney. This can get quite hot, so just give this a wide berth. And as we're moving towards the front of the motorhome, in this locker here is where your gas bottles will be located. With the gas locker open, you can see it houses two gas bottles, and using these rope tie downs you can tie them into place. Your gas regulator is just located up here, and you'll need something called a pigtail which will connect onto here, and then through a tube will then connect into the gas bottle itself, and then you can simply turn the gas on at the bottle and that will allow all the gas to flow through the vehicle. Now please remember that when you're travelling, the gas should always be turned off. You should never ever travel with your gas turned on, because if you're involved in a crash, obviously it could potentially be fatal, so just bear that in mind. You only should have your gas on for when you're stationary and you're using the motorhome. So moving on from the gas locker, you've then got your fresh water tank. All you've got to do is unclip this point removes, and then you use a food grade hose pipe to fill up the fresh water tank. Now the tank in here will hold approximately 100 litres of fresh water, so you can fill that up when you're on site. I don't recommend travelling with 100 litres of water due to payload and weight distribution, but when you're on site you can of course fill this all the way up. I'd personally use a food grade hose pipe. That will ensure that no bacteria builds up in the pipe and transfers into the tank. But equally, I wouldn't drink out the tank either. You're absolutely fine if you're boiling water and washing with it. But to drink straight out the tank, I wouldn't recommend. I'd recommend taking bottled water for that. But that is where you fill it up. Now the final thing on the outside that I have just missed over is the second drain down point. So we've spoken about draining down your boiler, but the wastewater drain down point is just located here, as you can see. Now there's a little valve on top here, and just like the boiler, there'll be a big grid on the side on the site that you are. You then just drive over the grid, turn the valve, and allow that to drain down. Now this is the only tank that I'd recommend to keep drain down all year round. So leave this open and put a bucket underneath, because this will ensure that any water that ends up in the tank will make its way out. This tank is of course underslung, so it could potentially freeze when you're using the motorhome. The other tanks you're not to worry about, like your boiler and your freshwater tank, because they will only freeze if you freeze, because you'll be in the vehicle with them. But as this is underslung, you need to make sure that this is always drained down in them cooler climates. And like I mentioned with the boiler, once you drain down the majority of water on site, you can leave all your drain down points open. Same thing goes for the freshwater tank, because that will ensure that all the vibrations of the road will get that residual water out of the tank. Okay, so we've now finished on the outside. We're now onto the inside of the motorhome. As we walk through the habitation door, just above you, you've got your main control panel. You've got your 12 volt button here, which is your isolator in essence, and that will allow you to turn everything on in the vehicle. When I click that on, you'll notice a couple of your lights come on down there. You've got your switches here, which will then turn lights on throughout the vehicle. Next to that, you've then got your pump button. Click that to turn your water pump on. Now, the only time you should have your pump on is if you've got water in the vehicle. Don't run the pump if you've got no fresh water in the tank, because once you leave it on, it will begin to burn out the pump. So ensure that that's on only when you've got fresh water. So once you've filled up on site and you move to your pitch, click that on, go to all of your taps, including the shower, and all you've got to do is turn this to hot and turn it on. What that will do is it'll pull fresh water from the freshwater tank into the boiler and make sure you've sealed the boiler, and then it will disperse it out the tap. It will spurt and splutter, and then when it's running steadily, you've primed your system for your hot water. Flick it over to cool, do the same thing. It will spurt and splutter initially, and after about 5 minutes or so, it'll be ready to use. It'll be flowing nice and steady, and then you are good to go. Do this on all your taps, and then once you've done that, you can actually leave your pump on the panel, because each of your tap has got something called a micro switch, which will activate and deactivate the pump whenever you need it. So you'll be good to go. Now, I'd recommend doing this as soon as you get on site, especially priming the hot water first, as that will ensure that water pulls through the boiler and the boiler's primed. The reason I'd recommend doing that is once you've done that and you turn your heating on, which I'll show you how to do later, if that's the first thing you do, by the time you've got everything sorted in the motorhome, the water will be up to temperature. Now, naturally, it's going to take a good 30 to 40 minutes to heat the water up. So like I say, that's the first thing you do. By the time you've got everything set up in the vehicle, that water will be nice and warm. Coming up to the panel again, you've got your temperature for the inside of the motorhome here. And the outside of the motorhome is just, sorry, on this side, just here. So it tells you the temperature inside and out. Next to that, you've then got the time. So you can turn the time on or off. Which is here, we just need to set it at the moment. And then next to that, you've then got your levels. One for your freshwater and wastewater, and one for the leisure battery and the vehicle battery. The freshwater tank will tell you if you hold it down at the top, and this dial will then show you the level. Now at the moment, with nothing in the freshwater tank, hence why nothing is reading. Same thing for the waste. We've got nothing on the tanks, nothing in the tank, so nothing's reading, but it will show up here. And then the same thing for the leisure battery. Hold that, you can see it reads what your leisure battery is at. And then your vehicle battery, hold down, and again, we'll show you that we're about 13 volts. So again, about nearly full for your leisure battery. And then finally, if you do get any alarms or any errors, you'll get a little alarm symbol on here. And finally, as well, just to point out, you've got a little light here, which will glow when you are plugged into electric. Now moving around, obviously into your lounge area. Now this bed, this lounge area actually turns into a bed. If you'd like me to show you one handover, I absolutely will. But all you've got to do is slide this table into position, and as you can see, it is telescopic. You've got a little handle underneath it, which is just here. Let that handle down and then apply pressure and weight onto the top of the table base, and that will slot into this position. Using the cushions, you can then infill this area, and then you'll notice there's a wooden piece which just then clips into here to fill this area to make a small double bed. Now underneath the side bench seat, you'll notice that you've got space for an additional leisure battery should you need it, and then there's your leisure battery all hooked up. And then as you can see, you've got your e-box, which is here, and this houses all the vehicle's fuses, so if anything blows, you can come to this point. I'd always recommend taking some spare fuses with you, because if anything blows or trips, you can simply resolve the issue nice and easily. And it's often just a generic fuse that you'll need, so you can pick them up from Halfords and just take a spare fuse with you. Next up, you've then got, for your forward-facing passenger seats underneath, you've got your fresh water tank, which you've seen how we fill up on the outside. If you want to clean this tank out, you can do by removing this red cap and cleaning this out. And if you buy water purifying tablets, you can just simply slot them in at the top. To drain this down, you've got this black valve here. All you've got to do is turn this to drain down the tank, and that will drain everything down. So it's dead easy, nice and accessible for you. Moving on past the lounge and into the rear of the vehicle, or into the kitchen area, you can see you've got your oven and grill, which is up at the top here. And below that, you've got your Dometic fridge. The Dometic fridge is a three-way system. So you can either run it off your gas, as indicated by the little gas flame here. You can run it off your 230-volt electric, as indicated by the plug sign. Or you can run it off your 12-volt leisure battery. The great thing with this fridge is, as it says here, you've got an automatic function, which I'd personally just leave it on all the time. That will automatically assign whichever fuel you need in the vehicle. Now when you're wild camping, run it off gas. When you're hooked up, like I said, run it off your 230 volt 230 volt electric, and then when you're traveling, you can run it off your 12 volt leisure battery. A lot of people think that when they're wild camping, they can actually run this fridge off the 12 volt leisure battery. However, that's not the case. If it was, it would just drain the battery of all of its power. So it will only allow you to run it off the vehicle battery, the vehicle's leisure battery when you're traveling. Because when the ignition's on, the vehicle battery will send charge through the alternator into the leisure battery, which can then power the fridge. So just bear that in mind. The only time you can use the fridge wild camping is when you have it on gas. Like I say, stick it on auto and that will automatically assign whichever fuel you've got. Next to that, you've then got a button as well which will recirculate the air in the fridge. And then on this side, you've got the temperature for the fridge. And also the grill controls are on this bit of plastic here as well, should you need them. Opposite the kitchen area, you've then got your 3 hobs and your sink, which of course we've discussed about priming the system. Moving through to the back, you've then got this door that pulls across, which is really good and useful for when you want a bit of privacy in the vehicle. And then we are into the bedroom area. On the left hand side of the bedroom area, you've got your toilet. For the toilet, as I mentioned, the main thing that you need to know is the blade on the toilet that I kept on making reference to outside. The blade's really important for the reasons I've discussed. And the blade, it's a little bit difficult, there we are, to show you, but it's this piece of plastic here. At the moment it's closed, pull it towards you to open it. So when the cassette is in use, pull it towards you to open the cassette so all the waste can drop into the cassette. And once you've done that, click the blue button up at the top here. That will activate your flush. Just bear in mind you will need your pump on for that to operate. And that will flush the entire system. Once you've done that, simply pull it across, or push it across rather, and that will seal the cassette. Now you do that for 2 reasons. The main reason is that will stop odours from escaping from the cassette, but also it will get you into the habit of having that closed, so when you come to remove the cassette, you're not running into that issue of it jamming. Again, we've spoken about priming the system on the for your taps, and the same goes for the shower, which is conveniently placed on the other side of the bedroom area. Returning back to the bed, your bed is fully electric, so you can actually adjust the positioning of the bed. At the moment it's in the recline position. If you want to flatten the bed, all you've got to do is press this button. It's a little counterintuitive. You click the up button to push the bed down, push button to push the bed back up. But you can see that's all electrically operated, and using this device it will allow you to send it up and down. Next to this, you've also got a 230 volt plug. Bear in mind, all your 3-pin plugs throughout the vehicle will only work when you're plugged into mains electric, so bear that in mind. And above here, you'll notice you've got all your packs with all your service history and everything in. And at the back, you've got your trip box. So if the vehicle ever trips, you can just come to this point here. Above that, you've then got your aerial for your TV, which is located in the front. You've got a little switch to turn this on or off. I'd personally just leave this on all the time. And you've got a little light here which is currently lighting up amber, which will tell you the signal. Red is a bad signal, amber is an okay signal, and green is of course a good signal. Now you can change that signal and improve it by simply twisting. It's a little bit difficult to show you on the video, but twisting this and then pushing the arm up, and then you can rotate that to find a better signal. You've also got a little arm on the bottom where you can wind and tilt the head of the aerial should you need it. In the bedroom area, on all your on all your skylights, you've got blackout blinds and fly screens, and you can also open these up by pressing the latch in and taking it up. Please ensure, however, that all these are completely sealed for when you're travelling, and the same goes for all of your windows, which just latch in by pulling these like so and allowing that to clip out. To take back in, all you've got to do is push it all the way back out and allow that to press in. Now you can actually put these on venting should you need to, but again, when you're travelling, please seal these correctly, like so. And then finally, on the other side, we come to your heating. So your vehicle's heating is quite easy, quite simple. As you can see down here, you've got the heating for if you're wanting to run the vehicle off gas, and underneath you've got the option of heating it off electric. So it depends on your situation and what you've got. Now coming over to the first one, at the moment you can see this dial is turned to the off position. If you want to just heat the water off gas, flick it up, you can see a little green light comes on, and then you're ready to go. I'll turn that off at the moment because I've no gas in the vehicle, I don't want it to error. But you can flick it on to 40 degrees or 60 degrees, depending on what power you want. And this will heat the water off gas. If you want just purely the vehicle's heating on, you can flick it down to this gas symbol here, which will only heat the vehicle's heating. Now if you want to heat the water and the vehicle itself, you can then select it onto this bottom one here, and that will heat everything on gas. You've then got a little dial here which you can turn once you've got your options selected, which will of course improve your the efficiency of what the gas is. Underneath you've then got the electric option, very similar. You can either have it on you can either have the electric running off 2 kilowatt electric for the water, 1 kilowatt electric for the water, purely the vehicle's heating, or the vehicle heating and the water 1 kilowatt electric, or the vehicle's heating and 2 kilowatt electric, as indicated by the 2 squiggles. So again, it depends on your situation and what you've got supplied in the motorhome. Now that concludes the handover video on this Burstner Solano. I hope you enjoyed.